I can finally go outside and touch grass again because after a week, we got the Techmarine up to 4th Prestige, level 25. I've maxed this class out. Now let's talk about it and go over the perks that I would recommend for this particular class. Now, I will say the Techmarine, I really did enjoy this class. I think it's a really phenomenal addition to the game. So far, I really haven't got to play a whole lot with it alongside my friends just because we're all trying to max this out. So I do look forward though to seeing how it's going to synergize with some of the other classes, because in the few games that I have got to play when I was playing something like Sniper or Bulwark, this definitely felt like a really good class to at least have one member on the team running. Its ability to deal with mobs and also dish out some insane damage on Terminus level enemies is just phenomenal. But enough of that, let's go through the class here. Now before we get into the perks itself, I'm just going to run you through the 3 main loadouts that I've been using. They are very straightforward. In fact, the only thing that's going to change throughout the 3 is going to be the primary weapon. So let's just run through these here real quick. For starters, I am going to be using the Gathelmore Crusade Alpha. Really love this heavy bolt rifle. The main reason that I go for it is because it is the one that has the additional accuracy buff to it. This is actually going to pair really well with one of our prestige perks. It's going to allow us to get a lot of headshots and keeping the rifle steady, which is something that I personally really love, because being able to take advantage of those headshot multipliers is phenomenal. I chose, however, not to go with the Ophelian Liberation Beta. I know it has just a slightly better headshot damage multiplier. However, I just felt with the additional ammo in the magazine and in reserve, plus the additional accuracy, I was just getting more out of the Gathelmore Crusade variant than what I was the Ophelian Liberation. Now, moving into the secondary weapon here, and again, this is going to be the same on all 3 loadouts. I ended up going with Retribution's Request. This is the heroic bolt pistol. The main reason I ended up going with this is because very rarely did I find myself truly running out of ammo with my primary weapon. And I just want to preface with, I grinded out most of this class on lethal, so I never felt like I was truly running out of ammo a whole lot. I was always able to find stuff on the field that I could pick up. But one of the nice things about this bolt pistol is its heroic perk. It allows you to instantly one-tap any enemy that is trying to summon reinforcements. So it's just something that's really nice to have in your back pocket. You see somebody calling for aid, can hurry up, give them that JFK money shot right there, and they're taken out of the battle completely. Just something nice to have in your pocket as a little backup. Then I also ended up going with the Omnissiah axe, rather. Of course, running the heroic variant, which, as you will see here, will give you additional damage after the Omnissiah rush, and it is based off of the duration. Honestly, I just love the Omnissiah rush. There's just something that's really fun about just stampeding through just groups of my Norris enemies and just gun striking them after you just give them a nice little bug zapper there. Had a lot of fun with this weapon. I chose to run it just because I found myself doing the Omnissiah rush quite a bit, and just that damage buff for some of the follow-up attacks afterwards was just really nice to have. Now, on to my second loadout. I did end up running the Deathwatch Heavy Bolt Rifle, which is the new heroic variant. The only thing that changes from this particular one compared to the other bolt rifles is just that you have a grenade launcher attachment to it. It was just something fun for whenever my servo gun was on recharge, just a nice little way to clear out groups of Majoris and Minoris that were bunched together, or if there was just somebody that was maybe a little ways out and I was out of ammo, I had at least some sort of backup without pulling out the bolt pistol where I could just spam them with grenades. This was just more fun than anything to use. The other weapon that I ended up going with is, again, the Gathelmore Crusade for the bolt rifle. Honestly, same logic as for the heavy bolt rifle. I ended up picking this just because it's got that accuracy bonus to it. This one does also have the highest headshot multiplier out of all the regular bolt rifle variants. Again, it just pairs really well with one of the prestige perks that I ended up picking for the Techmarine. So, phenomenal weapon choice, especially if you're really good at getting headshots. Something else, though, that I did toy around with quite a bit was also, again, Gafflemore Crusade Alpha variant on the Oculus bolt rifle. Again, just something that allows you to just stay on target and really max out your headshot potential. Plus, it does also have a headshot multiplier of 2, which does actually do some noticeable damage, especially if you're good at keeping your scope on target there. Now, let's get into the actual perks themselves here. So we're going to start off with all the prestige perks that I picked. Also, I do just want to throw out that patch 12.1 is officially out. So a lot of the team perks here, they have been fixed. There have also been some buffs. So if you started the Techmarine, but maybe you already finished it, or you just decided it wasn't your cup of tea because of some of the perks not working properly, that has been fixed now. But also the team perks no longer cost 500 in-game points to unlock. It's back down to the regular 50. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick. But in terms of prestige perks, the first one I went with, this is that perk I was mentioning, chained headshots. So headshot damage increases by 3% for every consecutive headshot, up to a maximum of 15%. The bonus lasts for 5 seconds when you're not landing a headshot. Just something to keep in mind, even if you mix in a couple body shots here and there, as long as you are getting as long as you are getting headshots, you are going to be stacking that damage multiplier. Again, it will reset with after a couple body shots, but that being said, if you just get right back on target with the headshots, you can very quickly get right back up to that 15%. And it is something that's noticeable, especially on some of the higher difficulties. Phenomenal way to take out a lot of enemies at range rather quickly. Moving into the second prestige perk, I ended up choosing Indomitable. This allows you to become invulnerable while you are activating the sentry guns. For me, this is kind of like that perk on Assault. One of the big things that you're going to be doing a lot with the Techmarine is activating the tarantula turrets. It is something that makes you vulnerable, just like with Assault whenever you're jumping up into the air to do your ground pound. So being able to eliminate the risk of taking damage during those vulnerable times, it's just an easy go-to. And I believe this is also something you can unlock right off the bat. I just found that for me personally, chained headshots made the most sense to grab first. Now, moving on into the third pick, I ended up going with Volatile Sentry. Essentially, whenever the sentry gun explodes, its damage has been increased by 1,000% and the explosive radius by 20%. Now, a lot of times I did find that the sentry turrets themselves weren't always going down. A lot of times just between myself and the AI and the tarantula themselves, we were able to keep them alive, up and running. However, during those moments when an enemy was able to destroy them, it was essentially like setting off a mini nuke on the field. And there were several times where I would have a bunch of Majoris that were just all beating the living snot out of my tarantula turret. It blows up and they along with it. So just something really nice to keep in your back pocket. Now, there is also another perk where if you don't want to run this, because this is very situational, you're not always going to get use out of it. There is another perk that will allow you to get 40% extra off of stims. That would be the swap out perk that I would pick for this particular class, just because even though the Techmarine is really good offensively, I did find it to be a bit squishy here and there. There was just a lot of times I noticed that I was taking a lot more damage compared to some of the other classes within the game. So that would be something I would recommend swapping out. Or there's another one where I can't remember the name, but if you have X amount of enemies around you, you take 15% range damage. Again, just something to offset some of the squishiness, I would definitely recommend. The final prestige perk I ended up picking was Blast Radius. it essentially just gives you a 15% increase to your equipment damage radius. However, I did find that this paired really well with the Melt-A-Bomb, especially if you had like Majoris enemies that were just in the animation of maybe like doing a backstep or moving away. Typically, a lot of times they would get out of that blast radius. This was just something that would guarantee that you would get that kill. Fortunately, however, that damage will also affect you, as I unfortunately blew myself up with a Melt-A-Bomb a couple times, but that's here nor there. Now let's get into the actual main 25 perks that we have to pick from here. So I will say you do have a lot of flexibility with this class, which is something that I truly appreciated. So if you don't like the particular perk that I picked, I will try to highlight another perk that you could easily swap it out with. I think this thing is going to be very open to however you want to build it. There's going to be a way to make it work. Now, the first one I went with is Precision Enhancement. This turns the servo gun into essentially just an overpowered, like, semi-automatic cannon that you have attached to your shoulder. Really nice for knocking out Majoris and also Extremist enemies rather quick. Plus, it also does quite a bit of damage on Terminus level enemies. Now, I haven't got to try this class on Absolute just yet, but I do know playing on Lethal, a lot of times just one charge from your servo gun was going to do a quarter of a Terminus enemy level's health. So definitely a phenomenal perk. Now, if you don't want that, you want something that's going to be able to deal with Minoris, Majoris, and everything in between. You can also swap over to the Plasma Enhancement, which will just swap out the bolt gun for a plasma rifle, essentially. I had a lot of fun with it. Ultimately, I found that the ability with this to just knock out Majoris and Extremist was just too good to pass up, so I did end up picking Precision Enhancement. However, there is no wrong decision when it comes to those two perks. Next, I ended up grabbing Arc Cleave, and this is just because I really enjoy, again, melee combat in here, and I did also like a lot of the different charged attacks that the Omniscient Axe has. Plus, you do have other melee options that would benefit from this, so just getting a 20% damage boost to all charged melee attacks was something that I found myself getting a lot of use out of. Now, moving into the third column here, I did end up going with Long Range Barrage. This is just something that ended up making a lot of my bolt weapons feel really powerful. So your damage, as long as an enemy is out past 20 meters, you are going to get a 25% damage buff. This will also stack along with chain headshots and your headshot multiplier. So if you're pulling off headshots at a distance, you're going to notice enemies are just melting instantly. Now, one of the other things is the Techmarine does also get a lot of perks that are geared around equipment, if that's something that you find yourself using a fair bit, like grenades. The other option I would recommend is Explosive Adept, just because you're going to get a generic 35% damage increase to any form of equipment that you use. Now, moving into the team perks, a lot of really good additions. Now, the one I ended up going with was Battlefield Repairs. Essentially, what this does is anytime that you perform a finisher on a Majorist or an Extremist enemy, instead of getting just back 1 bar of armor, you will actually get back 2. This was something that I felt really did a good job of helping manage some of the squishiness to this class, but it's something that every class is going to benefit from, because if you've lost all of your armor entirely, all you got to do is execute one Majorist or Extremist enemy and you're almost back up to full armor. It's something that's going to help keep the team alive. Now, something else that I would throw out is rather nice is Combat Squad Resupply. It gives you 1 extra piece of equipment. Not too bad. The only thing that really turned me off from this is it does not affect the Melt-A-Bomb, which is my personal favorite piece of equipment. But you do get 1 additional crack grenade. You add or combo this with one of the Tacticals team perks that allows you to resupply as well. You're going to have a lot of extra equipment that you're going to be able to throw out and slay the enemies of the Imperium. But if neither of those tickle your fancy, and you also find your squad using the tarantula turrets quite a bit, reinforced position is something really nice that you can use. You can also combo this with actually a lot of the perks from the bulwark. So if they're dropping their banner next to a tarantula, you can really mitigate a lot of the damage that you take. Plus, between this and some of the perks from the bulwark, you'll also be able to dish out quite a bit of damage as well. Now, moving into the fourth column here, I went with designated target. So anything that gets hit by your servo gun is going to take an additional 15% of damage for 10 seconds. That is both melee and ranged. I just really like this because if I wasn't able to immediately get something into the executable range, it would not take me very long to get it to that point. Or if it was something that was already knocked, I was very easily able to just clean it right on up. Now, I will say here, some of the other perks aren't too bad. If I was going to swap this out with anything, it would be Synergistic Arsenal. That way you can help get your servo gun back up and running. However, there are a few other ways that you can do that as well. So any of these, feel free to take them. I personally found Inexorable Salvo to be my least favorite out of the three. But let's move on into the fifth column here. I ended up going with Replenishing Salvo. This was just a really nice way to instantly kind of keep myself recharging equipment. Now, even though the team perk doesn't affect the Melt-A-Bomb, this does, and it's super easy to do. Now, it does have a little bit of a longer cooldown of 75 seconds, but as long as you kill or incapacitate an enemy with your servo gun, you're going to get a piece of equipment back. And if you are using either the Plasma variant or the Precision Enhancement, you're going to be able to do that anytime you fire up your servo, unless it's, let's say, a Terminus level enemy. But again, you do also have some additional options here if you do find yourself using the Tarantula turret quite a bit. Augmented Tarantula is a really phenomenal option to pick. It's going to allow your sentry gun to stay in the fight a little bit longer. Plus, you're going to get some additional damage from it as well. And finally, if neither of those tickle your fancy, you can just go with a general boost to your servo gun recharge with augmented ammunition feed. Now then, moving into the last column before the signature perk, I went with Strategic Gun Strike just because I found I was getting the most use out of my servo gun by specifically targeting a lot of the bigger enemies. This will allow it to remove the ability to target Minoris. You're only going to be able to target Majoris level enemies and up. However, in exchange for that, you get a 20% damage buff, and also, if the target is 20 meters away, you're going to be able to deal additional damage on top of that. Again, a couple other perks in this area that aren't too bad either. Fortifying Salvo is a really nice one, especially if, again, you do find yourself going down a lot or taking a lot of damage with this class. Again, just simply getting a kill or incapacitating an enemy with your servo gun will restore one piece of armor. You combo that with the team perk, you can go from having no armor to back up to full very, very quickly. Finally, the last one, counteroffensive, is also another nice one, especially if you find yourself gravitating a lot towards melee combat with this class. You're still going to be popping off the servo gun quite a bit throughout any playthrough, so anytime it's on cooldown, you get an additional 35% melee damage increase. That's always a nice thing to have. Now, moving into the signature perks, let me just say there are two options here that I really love, but all three of them are phenomenal. I think these are actually potentially some of the strongest signature perks in the game. I ended up going with the last one, but I am going to touch on all three because they're all extremely useful. The first one is Decapitating Stratagem. So anytime you kill or incapacitate a Majoris level enemy or higher, your servo gun is going to completely recharge, and this will kick in every 90 seconds, or the cooldown, I'm sorry, is every 90 seconds. Before, unfortunately, the patch, this was not working correctly. It would oftentimes trigger as soon as you killed or incapacitated something, so If you knocked it out in one shot, you would only get one shot back. Now it will fully recharge. I love this. It was really hard for me to choose between this and the one that I ended up going with, but this is a phenomenal way to keep your servo gun in the fight and just really dishing out a lot of damage to important targets. Next, lethal perimeter. So your servo gun will mark a zone around you that will automatically attack enemies that are coming into it. This again pairs really nice with strategic gun strike, just because if you do have a Majoris or higher that creeps up on you, you're going to be able to get a free shot off of them. Plus, it is only going to use 50% of the energy per shot. The only reason that I really didn't mess with this a whole lot was I just like to be able to save my entire volley for whenever I really felt that it was going to be best utilized. This will remove some of that control from you. However, if you do find that enemies are gaining ground on you a good bit, this is a good way to help mitigate that. Now, the signature perk I ended up going with was Omniscia's Fury. This will essentially set enemies on fire that get hit by the servo gun. Now, it was a very close call between this and Decapitating Stratagem, but burn damage in this game is phenomenal. So even if I do have to wait a little bit for my servo gun to recharge, the amount of damage that you can get out of this perk is just bonkers, especially against Terminus level enemies, because again, you're not gonna get them to the point where they're incapacitated or flat out kill them unless they're already at low health. But if you start the fight off by firing off a volley with your servo gun with this attached, you're automatically going to get that quarter health taken out. Again, that's looking at lethal, and it's going to be much higher below, but you're going to get a lot of damage put out. Plus, they're going to start taking burn damage as well. You couple that in with the headshot capabilities of this, and some of the bigger enemies in the game will just instantly melt. It's so fun and such an easy way to make short work out of some of the more difficult enemies within the game. But that's the class that I ended up going with. Again, I really did enjoy playing this class. However, I am glad to finally be done with it. I still think that there's some additional tweaks that they can make to this in maybe future updates. For me, though, the one big thing, this is my main gripe about this class, is I would like to see more armor customization for it in the future. I just kind of think the whole idea that, you know, outside of the helmet, you have stuff that's only native to the class. That for me was a huge bummer. Granted, some or a lot of the armor pieces do look really good, but if you were trying to do anything thematically with this class that, you know, required more than a helmet, unfortunately, you're kind of shit out of luck with that. And even then, a lot of the helmet options that we have, they're not bad, but it's definitely lacking compared to some of the other classes. But it is what it is. I know Saber is aware of a lot of the gripes that are going on currently with that. And again, we did get patch 12.1 out pretty quickly. So hopefully they continue to work on this class, because I really enjoyed it. I think it's a phenomenal addition to the game. And even though I will be taking a much needed break from playing this class, I do look forward to playing with others that are using it, because it's just something that worked out so well every time I was piloting something different. It was definitely a noticeable boon to the team. But as always, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.